But could it be possible for us to put some attention on Venezuela? And I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure the question does go with the theme of today, but I want you all to know that I personally have been really concerned about Venezuela for like a really long time. I don't know, and I'm not a big, reading the news type of person, but what's been going on in Venezuela is so dire that even I knew about it. Even I know about it. And it's been ongoing for like a really long time. People are starving. They're just starving. They're starving to death, lots of infant deaths. It's terrible because the poverty, because the corruption, incredible corruption in the government. Socialist, it's a socialist government there. And it's an example of what can happen if a socialist government isn't able to function as a socialist government. Lots of people are dying, especially the innocent ones, especially the children are the main victims. They take cardboard boxes and they cut out little wings for the babies. It's so sad. So I'm looking, and you know me, we do is we take the symptom on the surface and we follow it back to its source, like what is behind that? We know that greed and selfishness is ultimately behind the type of corruption that affects governments. But I'm also looking at the people, because the collective somehow has a karma that they're there, that they're in that country at that time, that particular event is taking place. And I'm asking the source of creation in the form of the mother of creation, like, what is Ma trying to accomplish? What is divinity trying to accomplish in Venezuela? Always if there's a struggle or a suffering there, it's because divinity wants to embody itself better in that area, right? So we want to say, what is it? And one of the things that I'm seeing is that Venezuela also, Venezuela has turned its own angers around on itself for a long time. Another fact about Venezuela is that it's one of the world leaders in murders with guns, I think. Yeah, it's like a world leader of, like right at the top of the list of homicides with guns. So the people have been unhappy for a really long time, and they've been taking their unhappiness out on themselves for a really long time. And what I feel is going on there is behind that, I'm not looking at we can point fingers at governments and things like that, but what I'm looking at is the incredible innocence that when things get really, really rough, what the people are doing is they're blaming themselves. And they're taking it on, they're taking the energies on themselves, and then they're suffering. And essentially what I'm seeing happening is Venezuela could use the download that came out of this webinar, which is to, rather than going, oh, I'm so upset, I'm so angry, this is so unfair, bitterness and resentment and all that, to say, okay, these are the energies, this is the emotional structure which is giving me a kind of power or energy to do something great, to do something creative. And then how do I channel it through Dharma? How does it come through the bull of Dharma, right? Through the leg of truth, in order to promote an effect on the surface that's really evolutionary and life-supporting. So what we're doing is, our collective is bringing the heart of Dharma to Venezuela, bringing the heart of Dharma in there. And really, we have, through our own physiologies, through our personal alignment with that bull of Dharma, have the heart of Dharma, we've been able to stabilize that particular level of intelligence, those qualities of wisdom, which are associated with really, truly knowing how Dharma works. And then that is offered to the soul of the people of Venezuela. And just as I was describing a few minutes ago, how we're in an energetic environment here, which is the coming into spring environment that feels completely different from the holidays, right? So Venezuela has its own energetic environment, very delicate. As we put attention there, it's so delicate, it's so tender. I feel as if the collective energy structure of Venezuela is just like on the edge. It's on the edge of existence, of its own existence. And so we had to do the healing for the refinement of balance before we could do this, because it's like approaching a newborn infant who's very ill. You don't go in and start just pushing energies around. You can't. You can't. This is us as a collective working more like a surgeon who works concisely. Before, some of our work has been a little more, bouncy, but now we don't bouncy. We have to go in very delicately to Venezuela. And the love is important. We're coming first with compassion. First with compassion and tenderness. And then the soma helps nourish or nurture the causal level of the physiologies of the people of Venezuela. So that's the next thing that's happening is the deva, the soma deva, is shooting that beam of soma off to the moon. It bounces off the moon and it comes back to Venezuela. It multiplies as it comes back, and it's able to feed or heal the causal level of the physiologies of the people of Venezuela. I'm just getting chills. Oh, and so I just need to hold silence for 1 second here. Hang on. I'm reminded of the story of Solzhenitsyn. I'm not sure I said that right. My Polish people here, my Europeans, can tell me Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn. Anyway, he was a communist and all forward for the Communist Party until he was captured and put in the Gulag archipelago, and then he had to live in that place for something like 7 years. And he noticed that some people did amazingly well in that place. A lot of people didn't do so well. A lot of people did very poorly. But some people did amazingly well. And he noticed that the ones who did surprisingly well were those who had been in some sort of spiritual position before they went into the Gulag. And he also he started noticing things about these people. And one of the things about them was that they tended to not buy into the overarching heaviness, oppressive attitude that kind of sat on the camp. They didn't tend to buy into it. They tended to rise above it. And they managed to locate their own happiness within themselves and produce their happiness from within themselves in spite of the outer circumstances. For anybody who has anxiety experiences too, if you feel that tightness in the stomach, which is where anxiety tends to sit, right? Fear, yeah, and the fierce feeling. He was saying the fierce feeling that we're having today too, that I was having anyway, that it can be a way to refine and soften and promote the evolution of that feeling, because it is kind of when something's sitting in some part of the physiology, it's like a thread, it's like a form of creation. It can, as a thread or a channel of consciousness, it can go out to the moon where it's softened by the soma-producing aspects of the moon, and then it can come back to the body in a softened condition, in a healing, nourishing condition. And it can also go to the people of Venezuela. And what's happening now is a download for all the people of Venezuela to receive the healing that we all just experienced, and for them to be able to be one of the great, oh, that's interesting, nurturers of the cosmic bodies, that the people of South America, many of them trace their heritage to the sun. They believe themselves to be descendants of the sun. Now, we've already talked in previous webinars about how all of our planets and all of our celestial bodies have life force on them, life forces of various types and varieties, but it's beautiful that they have already in their tradition a connection, a really intimate connection to the celestial field, and that the nodes of the moon, which are our friends this year that we're going to be working with, they arise in forms that are a little bit challenging because of the interaction between the moon and the sun. So what's happening is Venezuela is receiving a download of information to make just a very gentle, very, very tender, slight adjustment to the overarching energetic soup in which that country resides, to allow it to sit in a position that harmonizes and integrates the relationship between the sun and the moon. And that's like a whole country that's standing ready to basically help the whole. Here's this poor country, like they're in worse condition almost than anybody, right? And what they're doing is from within their own being able to rise up. We'll see. Watch the news, you guys. Let's see what happens with Venezuela this year. I bet. In order to nurture the relationship between the sun and the moon, to affect an evolutionary transformation on the relationship of the sun and the moon at the point of the nodes. That's when eclipses occur, right? When the node is there, when they're crossing across each other's path. It helps all of us. It helps the whole world. So beautiful. And let me tell you, there is a big connection being made right now between our healing collective and those individuals in Venezuela who stand in positions of energy healers, shamans, whatever, positions like that. Is a very nice, the channels of communication are open, you guys, right now. This is there. We're joining together in this collective to support. It's a big support.